Today, we are going to show you how to install Satori Elements SA042 with Japanese rice straw as an additive to a painted interior wall. These beautiful, authentic imported finishes have a centuries-long tradition in Japan. They are easily customizable with a variety of our additives, such as straw and glass beads, as well as by textures made with specialty tools, such as our Japanese trowels. We want to point out that Satori wall finishes are meant for professional contractor application only, and should only be applied by contractors used to applying fine finishes by hand trowel. All of our application manuals are available for PDF download at our website satoriwalls.com. Before we get started, it's a good idea to pause the video here and go to satoriwalls.com and click on the Elements header at the top of the website. Once there, scroll down on the right-hand side and select the PDF download entitled Substrate Preparation Manual. Please read this manual and the SKPT Material Safety Data Sheet, or MSDS, very carefully before beginning all applications of Satori. Take a few minutes to read the Substrate Preparation Manual and SKPT Application Manual before restarting the video. We recommend a Level 4 wall surface be achieved prior to applying Satori SKPT Primer. Make sure to scrape off any loose material, then follow up by dusting, cleaning, and drying the surface thoroughly. You will also need to tape off any adjacent surfaces prior to application. Now, let's get started transforming your walls. NIOSH-approved dust masks, N95, and chemical-resistant gloves are required for application and removal of the products. The product should be mixed and applied in appropriately and adequately ventilated areas. Avoid generating dust when possible. Here's what you will need: a 5-gallon bucket, 1 3/4 quarts, 1.9 liters of water per 1 bag of Satori SKPT, 2 small plastic containers for water using 1 container to hold back 20% of the water until after mixing, an electric hand mixer. Start by cutting open 1 bag of SKPT primer and setting it down. Pour 80% or 1.5 liters of the water into the 5-gallon bucket, holding 20% back. Carefully and in a controlled manner, pour the bag of SKPT primer into the water inside the bucket. The goal is to minimize dust. Make sure you have plenty of ventilation in the area, or mix this outside if possible. Start mixing with the electric hand mixer until it is mixed thoroughly. Then grab a hand trowel and test the slump of the mix. This is what it should look like. Let the mixture stand for 20 minutes and retest the slump. If more water is needed, add up to the remaining 20% of leftover water. Now, we are ready to apply the mix to a hawk and start applying to the wall. Start on the upper wall and apply left to right. A 1 or 2 coat process can be used, but there must be no drying in between coats. If you are using a 2-coat process, apply the second coat in about 40 minutes or when you can slightly touch the first coat with your finger and no material comes off, even though the first coat is still wet. The ideal coverage range is 1 mm to 1.5 mm, or no more than credit card thickness. Wait at least 12 hours until the primer is fully dry. Now we are ready to mix Satori SAO plaster with Japanese rice straw. We will generally follow the same method as when we mix the SKPT primer, except that the amount of water is greater, 2.2 liters or 2 1/3 quarts of water with 20% held back for after the mix is settled for 20 minutes if needed. We have 2 additional products to mix with the SA042 plaster: the liquid bonding agent, which is already pre-measured, 1 bag of white liquid bonding agent to 1 bag of plaster. We also have the bag of straw to add to the plaster mix. We begin by adding 80% of the water. We are now ready to add the bag of bonding agent to the water in the bucket. Squeeze out as much of the bonding agent in the plastic bag as you can. Use the electric hand mixer to mix the bonding agent with the water. Now we are ready to cut open and carefully add the bag of SA042 pre-tinted plaster to the water. And work in a well-ventilated area or outdoors if possible, while minimizing the amount of dust. Use the electric hand mixer to mix the plaster in the bucket, mix thoroughly. Add the bag of straw to the mix starting with 1/3 of the bag. After mixing in 1/3 of the bag of straw, spread a test of the material on a board to determine if you like the amount of straw dispersion when spread over a flat surface. You can add up to 1 full bag of straw per bag of plaster. The closer the color of the plaster to the straw, the more straw will blend well. If there is more contrast between the color of the plaster and the straw, the less straw you will likely want, as it will begin to look too busy when on the wall. In this case, the full bag of straw was used with the color of SaO42 being a straw-like color. Mix thoroughly once again, adding some water if needed, and let the mix stand for 20 minutes. Add up to the remaining 20% of water to the mix to achieve the desired slump, just like we did with the SKPT primer. Test again for the desired slump of the plaster before applying on the wall. Now, we are ready to apply our first coat of Satori wall finish, starting from the left edge and moving right just as before. The first coat should be thinner than the second coat, just enough to cover the surface. The goal is complete and even coverage with no bald or high spots, achieving a thickness of 1 mm to 1.5 mm or a credit card thickness or less. Satori plaster takes a long time to dry, so if you make a mistake, you can scrape it off or go over it and correct it easily. After your first coat is done, test it after 40 minutes or so by touching lightly with your finger. There should be no plaster sticking to your finger, but the plaster should still be wet. You are now ready to apply your second and final finish coat. You can use the exact same method for the finish coat, except that you are applying a thicker amount. The plaster will need a full 12 hours to dry thoroughly. It is best to allow 2 days for application with a night of drying in between the primer and the finish. When fully dry, the plaster looks smooth and the straw additives maintain their separateness and are not coated over. You now have a beautiful, long-lasting wall coating which will delight you for years to come. Please visit our website satoriwalls.com for more information and all the application manuals or contact information to place an order today.